Hey guys, if you haven't watched part 1 of this series, kindly watch that first. Otherwise, you won't understand this. And if you have already watched it, then without any further ado, let's go. The scene opens with Jung Yeonshin surrounded by the warriors of the Mantis sect. At the top of a grand staircase, their sect leader sits, his gaze locked onto Yeonshin with an expression of cold disdain. Descending the stairs with measured steps, the Mantis sect leader's voice booms across the hall. A brat like him killed our sect members? Yeonshin remains silent, quietly assessing the situation. His sharp eyes take in the sect leader's attire, an opulent dragon robe, a garment meant only for the emperor. Is he a rebel? He wonders to himself. With a wave of his hand, the sect leader orders his subordinates to stand down. You all stay out of this, he commands. It's time for me to unsheath my sword after a long while. A metallic ring fills the air as he draws his blade, its edge gleaming under the dim light. He steps closer to Yeonshin, his voice laced with arrogance. You may think you're performing a chivalrous deed, but you've chosen the wrong place to show up. Yeonshin finally speaks, his voice calm yet firm. What's your name? The sect leader scoffs, irritation flashing across his face. What use is my name to someone who's about to die? Yeonshin's expression remains unreadable. I need to know the name of the sect leader in order to claim credit. The remark ignites a fury in the sect leader, and without another word, he lunges forward, his sword slicing through the air. Yeonshin watches him intently. Swift sword, I can see the trajectory of his attack. Is it because I've grown stronger? With effortless precision, Yeonshin deflects the strike as if it were nothing. The sheer force of the impact sends the sect leader stumbling back, his eyes widening in disbelief. Such power! A bead of sweat trickles down the sect leader's face as he locks eyes with Yeonshin. A silent tension lingers between them for a moment before the leader turns to his men. Get him! A horde of warriors charges at Yeonshin from all directions. Yet he stands motionless, observing their movements. Then, in a blur, he counters their attacks effortlessly, moving through them like a ghost. His blade dances through the air, cutting them down with swift, precise strikes. I can see the trajectories of all their attacks. One by one, the warriors fall. The few remaining hesitate, fear creeping into their eyes as they witness the massacre. Yeonshin's movements are fluid, efficient, and unstoppable. Strike them, he murmurs under his breath. He moves past them, cutting them down in a single, seamless motion. When he finally stops, he stands before the Mantis sect leader, the fallen warriors sprawled behind him. The sect leader stares in shock, his voice barely a whisper. What on earth? Yeonshin's thoughts remain focused on his task. I was told to subdue him in front of his entire sect. I shall think of the sword in my hand as a fist. His grip tightens around his blade as he prepares for the next strike. Second strike, formidable wall. With an explosive burst of speed, he soars toward the sect leader, his blade flashing through the air. The next moment, the sect leader is cleaved in half, his final words cut short. You little! Silence follows. Yeonshin stands still, his blade dripping crimson. He turns to the remaining sect members, his voice cold and unwavering. Today, I will destroy the Mantis sect's signboard. Panic spreads among the surviving warriors. What the hell? That crazy brat. Take the master swordsman. Get him here now. Yeonshin's ears catch the murmur of their voices. Master swordsman? Are you referring to the blood master swordsman? Is the blood flame cult behind you? For a brief moment, the sect members hesitate, their fear evident. Yeonshin wastes no time. His hand shoots forward, grabbing one of them by the throat. Gah! The man chokes, struggling against Yeonshin's iron grip. Speak! Through gasps, the man manages to respond. That's right. He's probably sleeping inside the building right now. Yeonshin processes the information, his gaze narrowing. He is sleeping? His thoughts race. If they're really the blood master swordsman, then there's no way he wouldn't have detected a fight of this scale. Before he can contemplate further, a sudden disturbance catches his attention. A sword hurtles through the air toward him at breakneck speed. With a swift motion, Yeonshin raises his blade, deflecting the incoming attack. A new figure steps forward, his expression unreadable. "You're pretty skilled," the man muses. "I wasn't expecting you to deflect that." Yeonshin's eyes sharpen as he identifies the newcomer. Blood Master Swordsman. A memory surfaces, one of a past conversation between Yeonshin and Meijin. Meijin's voice echoes in his mind. "Blue Robe Warrior?" Yeonshin had nodded. Yes. Meijin had smirked. 5. If you slay about 5 Blood Master Swordsmen, you can be recognized as a Blue Robe Warrior regardless of your age. As the realization settles, Yeonshin exhales slowly, steadying himself. Before him stands one of his greatest obstacles yet. The battle is far from over. The battle between Jung Yeonshin and the Mantis sect had reached its peak. Standing amidst the fallen members of the sect, he locked eyes with the Blood Master Swordsman. Without hesitation, he smirked and spoke. "I got lucky. Now I just have 3 more to go." The Blood Master Swordsman clenched his jaw, irritation flashing across his face. The air between them grew tense as Yeonshin prepared to strike, his sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. However, the Blood Master Swordsman effortlessly blocked his attack, forcing Yeonshin to reassess the situation. Yeonshin thought to himself, "I must end it here. This is the center of the Mantis sect. If I let this fight drag on, my chances of winning will drop." As Yeonshin strategized, the Blood Master Swordsman raised his hand, purple energy swirling around his palm. A sinister grin spread across his face as he chanted ominously, "Go to hell." In response, Yeonshin activated his technique, channeling his chi into his sword before thrusting it forward. Infinite Blossom Fist Strike, Vortex. The powerful strike cut through the swirling sorcery, disrupting the Blood Master Swordsman's attack. The man's expression twisted in disbelief. "Be bastard." Without wasting a moment, Yeonshin took advantage of the opening. "I won't be listening to your last words." With a swift motion, his blade sliced through the Blood Master Swordsman's throat. A gurgled gasp escaped the man as his head separated from his body, flying through the air before landing lifelessly on the ground. The remaining sect members, who had barely survived the massacre, stood frozen in fear. "Ah, the sect is done." Yeonshin turned to them, his voice cold and commanding. "Don't try to run away." His sharp gaze was enough to keep them rooted in place, trembling. As the scene shifted, Yeonshin stood among a group of villagers who bowed in gratitude. "Sir, thank you so much. You have sought our revenge for us." Another man, his face filled with sorrow, stepped forward. "You have brought peace to my dead daughter." Yeonshin observed them for a moment before asking, "Xian is the Zhongnan sect's territory. How did such a thing happen?" One of the men sighed, shaking his head. "The Zhongnan sect is fighting against the tyrant sword tribe." Yeonshin's eyes narrowed. "They are fighting?" The villagers continued explaining, revealing that all martial art schools under the Zhongnan sect had retreated to Mount Zhongnan for the battle. Later, as Yeonshin made his way through a dense forest toward Desolate Fortress, he contemplated the situation. Yeonshin thought to himself, if they're up against the tyrant sword tribe, then the Zhongnan sect will have to risk their lives. It won't end with just 1 or 2 martial masters dying. His concern extended to his niece and brother. Determined, he muttered, "I need to go to Zhongnan." The 13 Skies is an unorthodox group that rules over the unorthodox faction. The Desolate Fortress's interference is a necessity. A lot of credit can also be claimed by taking the heads of the Tyrant Sword Tribe's martial masters, so Ma Jin will allow me to do that too. Stopping in the middle of the jungle, he called out to the empty surroundings, "Have you found traces of the battle maniac?" From the shadows, 2 persons from Mount Hua emerged. One of them responded, "It seems he wasn't at the Mantis sect." Yeonshin nodded, his voice calm. "I see. That's a pity." Cheonju looked at him with admiration. "That was a splendid display of martial arts. You are the future Radiant Demon Squad leader." No, you might even become the Divine Sword Squad leader. That will widen our sect's horizon of knowledge. Hyan clenched his fists. Whenever I think about you saying that you only needed 5 exchanges of moves, I feel restless. Yeonshin remained silent, merely watching him. After a pause, Hyan spoke again. How about becoming friends with me? I feel like you would be interested in the Manhwa sect's martial arts too. Besides, the Desolate Fortress isn't that far from the Manhwa sect. Yeonshin's response was as indifferent as ever. I don't have any matters to attend to at the Manhwa sect. Hyan hesitated, caught off guard by the blunt rejection. However, Yeonshin added, I won't refuse to see you if you do come looking for me. Though you must learn a new martial art before visiting each time. A smirk played on his lips as he turned away, leaving Hyan standing in thoughtful silence. The scene transitions to an inn where the protagonist returns. Everyone is present, and as he enters, Myung observes him closely. The energy around him has changed a little, Myung remarks, sensing a shift in his aura. Baek Mirio takes note of the injury on the protagonist's back. Looks like you got slashed on your back. Sit down. I'll help you apply some balm. Majin, intrigued, steps forward and asks, Lightning Genius, how did the mission go? The protagonist removes his bag from his shoulder and reveals its contents. The room falls silent as everyone looks on in shock. Majin quickly pieces things together. The Blood Flame cult was there? He exclaims. And there was even a Blood Master Swordsman? Chung Myung, clearly impressed, nods. Wow, you just proved that what happened in Jinping County wasn't a fluke. Majin, still processing the information, continues, the Blood Flame cult has made another move, and they have even stationed Bloodmaster swordsmen in places where they're usually not seen? Baek Mirio furrows her brows. This is definitely not normal. Majin, acknowledging the gravity of the situation, nods. In any case, Lightning Genius, you've accomplished a great feat. I feel like problems are following you around. Yet you have resolved them all and brought back information that will be of aid to the Murim. The protagonist, looking determined, interrupts. I have something to say. Majin turns his attention to him. What is it? I would like to go up Mount Jongnon. Majin looks at him in surprise. You want to go to Mount Jongnon? The protagonist affirms. Yes, I'm worried for my nephew's safety. A heavy silence fills the room as everyone contemplates his words. Majin finally responds, We just heard the news too. However, it is dangerous at Mount Jongnon right now. The Tyrant Sword Tribe is completely different from the Blood Flame cult. They aren't your normal, unorthodox group. Baek Mirio chimes in. They use both traditional martial arts and sorcery. You could think of them as people who have gone crazy about getting stronger. Majin nods in agreement. That's right. More importantly, we have not received any missions. We just need to do what we've been tasked with. Chung Myung, however, interjects. A captain could also give orders for a mission if they deem it necessary, though. Majin, after a brief pause, admits, I'll be honest here. I can't send you to Mount Jongnon without knowing whether you'll make it back. The protagonist looks at him in disbelief. Pardon? Majin sighs. Anyone in the Desolate Fortress who knows how talented you are will worry about that. Chung Myung adds, It can't be helped that people want to recruit you. Your blood relations do not help the situation either. There's also that incident where you were invited to the Mount Hua sect. The protagonist, frustrated, challenges Majin. Captain, how can you be incapable of separating personal and business matters? A tense silence falls over the room. The protagonist presses on. Besides, is that all the trust I've built with the Radiant Demon Squad? I have very clearly shown what I'm capable of. Please let me go. In addition, please record this as a solo mission. Chung Myung smirks. Looks like that's a checkmate. Baek Mirio, irritated by his comment, gives Chung Myung a firm smack. Majin, after much contemplation, finally speaks. You're right. I can't refute what you said as well. In return, take on one attack of mine. Baek Mirio, concerned, protests. Captain, Majin remains firm. Just one attack. If you can parry it or dodge it, I'll let you go. Beck Mirio, still uneasy, starts to object, but Meijin continues. In order to stand at the top of the Jianghu, one must be at least that competent. If you are able to handle one of my attacks, I promise to give you a separate reward too. The protagonist, unwavering, meets his gaze. All right, the scene changes, and we see a group of people from Mount Hua present as the battle between Yeonshin and Meijin is about to begin. Ju steps forward and thanks Meijin. Thank you for granting us permission. Turning to his sect members, Ju instructs them, bear this in mind. This is a precious opportunity to witness the technique of the Radiant Demon Squad captain. Hien questions, isn't a Desolate Fortress's Black Robe Martial Master on the same level as you? Ju nods. That's right. Additionally, he is especially strong in close combat, even more so than me. Hien looks surprised. What? Ju continues. The nickname of the Radiant Demon Squad captain is Hell Slaughterer. It means he completely rules the battlefield. There are quite a number of reputable clan elders who were killed by him after committing hypocritical atrocities. For someone as skilled as him, even a slight movement in his hand has great meaning, because that single attack could end a life instantly. Unlike us, the martial artists of the 9 sects, who seek the ultimate principle of swordsmanship, his martial arts were trained purely for battle. Even Yeonshin will have a hard time. Hien murmurs. I doubt there is anyone around my age who could take on an attack from a master like him. The scene shifts as Yeonshin and Meijin stand face to face, ready for battle. Yeonshin speaks. Can you give me some time? Meijin replies, take as long as you need. Since I'll be using a move that a white robe martial artist can't handle, you need to sharpen your senses as much as you can. Yeonshin observes Meijin and thinks to himself, there are less than 30 black robe martial masters in the Desolate Fortress. However, there's no need to be nervous. He takes a deep breath. I just need to show what I have learned. Focusing deeply, Yeonshin closes his eyes and concentrates. When he opens them again, he mutters to himself, I can see it. With renewed confidence, he addresses Meijin. I'll let you have the first move. Meijin smirks and begins to manifest electricity around his body, preparing his attack. Yeonshin immediately analyzes the situation. A palm strike technique of that level will be able to break through most fortress walls. I need to dodge that. Meijin moves with incredible speed, his eyes glowing red as he charges toward Yeonshin. Yeonshin realizes, I can't get away with any of the mobility arts I have learned so far. At that moment, something clicks within Yeonshin. He perceives a faint light guiding him, signaling the perfect path to evade the attack. However, I can take a single step, he thinks. As Meijin's devastating strike approaches, Yeonshin suddenly takes a single step to the side, dodging the attack in an instant. The movement is so precise and effortless that everyone watching is left in shock. After a few moments of stunned silence, Meijin finally asks, what was that mobility art? Yeonshin smiles and replies, I simply walked, because I saw a way to survive. A beautiful visual representation appears, showcasing the light that guided Yeonshin's step. He continues, I'll name it the evading swift step. Meijin chuckles slightly, then speaks with finality. I permit the lightning genius to travel to Mount Jongnon. After the sun rose, the 2 young martial artists from the Desolate Fortress made their way towards Jongnon Mountain. Yeonshin wore a blue robe with a white robe beneath it, walking closely behind Wang. In the Jongnon sect, being a white-robed warrior alone would not be enough to act independently. Chung Myung jokingly remarked while helping his young junior borrow and wear the robe. Yeonshin, puzzled by the remark, wondered about its meaning, feeling a sense of curiosity rising within him. Mirio spoke to clarify. A white-robed martial artist with a blue Desolate Sect long robe meant that the person was acknowledged as a blue warrior of Desolate Fortress, a title that guaranteed one status as a rising star within the sect. The title of Rising Star was not given lightly in Desolate Fortress. It indicated the best among the juniors following the martial path. The significance was amplified by the fact that it was awarded less than half a year after entering Desolate Sect, a rare and honorable achievement. Mirio smiled. her expression captivating and selfless. She explained that the title came with the authority to command all white-robed warriors within Desolate Sect. Jung Yeonshin added that if anyone asked, Yeonshin could mention the Azui's demon sword from the Radiant Demon Squad acknowledging him, which would likely prevent most disputes. Mirio also suggested using her own warrior name, Zen Demon Sword, as a gesture of handing over the blue robe, a gesture of rejoining the small ceremony. Yeonshin thanked them awkwardly, though they seemed pleased and proud. As they continued on the road, he felt an unfamiliar sensation in his chest, the kindness of his senior overwhelming him in a way he had not experienced before. The words they spoke were more than mere gestures. They carried the weight of responsibility and recognition. Jung turned back slightly, his tone teasing but tinged with envy, complimenting Yeonshin on the way the white robe and long blue robe suited him. Yeonshin couldn't help but speak his thoughts aloud as he felt the weight of the blue robe, as if contemplating the significance of the situation. Jung commented that a young hero like Yeonshin would be quick to adapt, his tone light but carrying a subtle admiration. Yeonshin, though moved by the compliment, felt a deep gratitude toward Jung for accompanying him on his journey, a companion who had stood by him through thick and thin. Before long, the two arrived at the entrance to Jongnan Mountain. From a distance, they had been struck by the steep and solemn terrain, but up close, the entrance revealed the strict nature of the martial arts sect, with martial artists standing guard, their vigilance unmistakable. Jung noted that the martial artists seemed to be from Jongnan, wondering if the conflict with the Tyrant Sword sect was real, as they had come to the foot of the mountain rather than the main gate. The air was thick with tension, and the sense of anticipation only grew stronger with each step they took. As the two approached, two of the four guards stepped forward and asked for their sect names and purpose. Jung casually replied, identifying them as from Desolate Sect, subtly signaling Yeonshin to take responsibility as a Desolate Fortress rising star, though his tone remained light. Yeonshin stepped forward, introducing himself as Yeonshin of the Radiant Demon Squad, and Wang followed with his own introduction, emphasizing the point that they were indeed representatives of the prestigious Desolate Fortress. The guards scrutinized their clothing carefully before questioning if they intended to prove their identity with mere garments. Jung then produced jade identity tokens from his robe, a subtle but definitive display of their affiliation. One of the guards mocked them, questioning whether young martial artists like them would act independently and who would believe such claims. A sharp-tongued disciple was about to retort but was silenced by a senior martial artist who had witnessed the unfolding situation. The senior guard spoke with authority, explaining that due to the current wartime situation, they could not easily trust unfamiliar identities, though his tone seemed more mocking than reasonable. The tension in the air grew palpable. As Yeonshin and Jung stood before the gate, Jung, clearly frustrated, muttered under his breath as he raised his inner energy. The slight wave of energy spread quickly, an unmistakable display of his true power. Having passed the Desolate exam and become a Radiant Demon Squad white-robed martial artist, he was no longer the carefree figure he appeared to be. The energy he emanated now carried the weight of his strength. The guards finally recognized the power of Desolate Fortress in Jung's display of inner energy. One of the guards, outraged by the display, screamed at them, pointing a finger in accusation. However, Jung, now exasperated, demanded to know what was meant by such nonsense, his patience at an end. Yeonshin silently reflected on the situation. The fight with the Tyrant Sword sect clearly wasn't going well. The pride of the 9 sects seemed to be cracking, and the arrival of these young martial artists, confident and certain of their place, was enough to shake the foundations of the old guard. These young warriors, who had stepped forward boldly to claim their role, were a sign that things were changing in the martial world. The guard could hardly believe what he was witnessing. He spoke with incredulity, remarking that young martial artists like them were acting as if they were from Desolate Fortress, at such a time as this. His tone grew more resolute, a sense of frustration tightening in his chest. Another elaborated that even if they were truly from Desolate Fortress, it would still be a problem. If 2 young martial artists who merely claimed to be from Desolate Fortress were being sent to the Jongnan, The reputation of the once prestigious desolate fortress seemed to be a thing of the past. His tone became increasingly sarcastic as he spoke, and the sharpness in his eyes suggested he wasn't simply voicing an opinion but issuing a challenge. Yeonshin felt the weight of the insult and reached for the handle of his sword, his fingers grazing it. He calmly spoke, his voice steady despite the rising tension. He reminded the guard that insulting martial artists from another force without reason was unbecoming. The inner energy that had been quietly simmering inside him flared, making his presence even more imposing. The Jungnan disciples, caught off guard by Yeonshin's swift and overwhelming aura, began to grit their teeth and reach for their swords. One of them, angered by Yeonshin's words and actions, shouted, demanding to know if he intended to intimidate them. In an instant, Yeonshin unsheathed his sword with a swift motion, sending a burst of force toward the guard in the back. The aura of his sword strike was powerful enough to knock the guard's sword from his grip, sending it flying through the air. It all happened in a fraction of a second, leaving the guards speechless and stunned. Chung observed the scene with a calm demeanor, fully aware that if Yeonshin chose to, the guards would be unable to do anything to stop him. Yeonshin sheathed his sword, his eyes betraying no emotion, as if silently conveying that he would mercilessly slay them should they dare to disrespect desolate fortress again. Before any further action could be taken, a voice rang out, clear and authoritative, causing the very bushes to tremble. An immense wave of inner energy filled the air. The presence of the figure who had spoken was overwhelming, as though she were a celestial being descending to the mortal world. Yeonshin immediately recognized the significance of this presence. It was a transcendence of martial power, something beyond the realm of ordinary martial artists. The woman standing before them exuded an aura of superiority, her delicate body surrounded by an energy that seemed to defy her frail physique. Her extraordinary skills were apparent even without her lifting a finger. One of the guards shouted, recognizing the woman. Yeonshin assessed her quietly, noting that she seemed to possess the same level of power as a blue-robed warrior from Desolate Fortress. The woman's commanding voice filled the air once more, cutting through the tension. She chastised the guards, calling their actions unbefitting of Jungnan disciples, and suggested they return and discuss the matter further. The guards, ashamed, immediately apologized, their faces red with embarrassment. They muttered that they were deeply ashamed to face such a senior, their spirits clearly deflated. After a brief pause, the woman spoke again, this time directing her words to Yeonshin and W. She expressed her shame at the way the Jungnan disciples had behaved in front of honored guests from Desolate Fortress. Chung appeared completely overwhelmed by the woman's presence, though it was unclear whether he was more taken aback by her beauty or the sheer magnitude of her power. Yeonshin, ever composed, introduced himself first. He calmly stated that he was Yeonshin of the Radiant Demon Squad and that his companion, W. Chung, was also a member of the same squad. The woman, her soft voice carrying an unspoken weight, revealed her own identity. She was Wei Manhwa of the Jonggon sect. W. Chung immediately recognized the name, feeling a sense of awe. His exclamation confirmed the significance of her identity, Wei Manhwa, the Cloud Sword Dragon of Jungnan sect. Her name carried immense prestige, a warrior title associated with the strength and ferocity of a dragon. Despite her transcendent beauty, Yeonshin found his interest piqued not by her appearance, but by the strength she clearly possessed. She was a force to be reckoned with, and that was what mattered most to him. On top of that, she had ascended to the position of an elder at the young age of 20. And with that, the chapter ends. Guys, we have come to the end of our video. If you want more of this recap, let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to like and smash that subscribe button for more recaps. See you guys later.